What's good? This is Marcus Manderson, aka the Fingaz. In this video, I'm going to go over how I created the latest entry into the Producer's Corner sample challenge. This is a challenge that the Producer's Corner posts every week on Facebook. They send a sample out to all the producers in the group, and producers have 1 week to flip the sample, make a beat out of it, and send it back in. And every Saturday or Sunday, depending on the week, they go live and they review all the beats that were submitted. Sometimes they get up to 60, 70, 80, 90 beats, and the live stream can go up to like 1-2 hours long. I think some of them have gone up to 3-4 hours. So it's actually a great group to be part of. Before this group, I was not big into sampling, but this has helped me sort of improve my sampling skills, sort of hone it. So definitely over the last almost year, maybe year and a half, I've been part of this group and have created a decent catalog of sample materials. So for this one, I often use, I'm on the iPad here, I often use Beatmaker 3 as my app of choice. That's sort of like my DAW. So for those that use like FL Studio or Pro Tools, whatever system you use, for me, Beatmaker 3 on the iPad is my version of like FL Studio, GarageBand, Pro Tools, whatever. So in this case, we had this sample that was provided. The sample was called, I'm gonna find it here, Putumayo presents Congo, I think it was called Congo to Cuba. You see it there. Here's a quick idea. It was actually, I think, a full album. It was just probably about an hour long or so. If I load it in here, just hear that playing, playing this whole file here. I ended up taking, I think, something towards the end there and flipping that. So let me get rid of this. So the chops I used, there's 3 main chops. This one here. And as you can see, it's actually tuned down by 4 semitones. You see here. Here's the original sample. So I tuned that down 4 semitones. Here's the other chop I used. But I tuned that down 4 semitones. And here's the third chop I used right here. And tuned that down 4 semitones. And then just came up with a sequence that I liked. So here is the chop of the sample. So a quick overview of what I threw on there for effects. Didn't do too much. When I chopped the sample, I did, if you look at the bottom right here, throw a high pass filter. Where it says filter type, select that, choose high pass, and I usually go, depending on the sample, I might go up to, a couple hundred hertz. I just want to cut out some of the low end because I know I'm going to add bass later in. And then for the effects, on the left-hand side here, you see these different icons. Towards the bottom is this audio effects button here. And then I added this Modly effect. Modly is an effect by, it's an audio unit effect by, I believe, Clevgrand here. Clevgrand, and I have a bunch of their effects. Modly is right here towards the top right now. Threw that on there. I usually use a preset, so I use this Tape A preset under effects at the bottom, Tape A. Bring the mix down to maybe about 10%, so I don't want it too much in the mix. Just when you hear it, you can hear that echo sort of filter out. So that's what I use Modly for on this track. Moving on to my drums. I believe I used, I don't remember exactly which kit I used. Let's see what I have in the samples. So I used I want to say the Fingaz on the beat. If I go to my sounds here, Drum Digger, November, Drum Kit 2019. It's a new kit they just released. So I used a couple of their kicks. I think I used 1 kick, 1 of their snares. Their Vox on this one I use two. I use that thing, and maybe some claps and cymbals. Just threw them in some pads. So that's just me hitting the pads on the iPad here. And then for effects, this is my typical drum setup. I use this punch on drums and FAC transient. I use FAC maxima to sort of bring up the levels. And then I also use this low fly dirt from MSX Sound Design or MSX Audio, MSX2 Audio, and just bring up a little level in the drums to add just some warmth, saturation. Here's the drum pattern. Let's see. So that goes on, then I bring in elements as the track develops. Moving right along, 808s. So I have a bunch of 808s. My favorite is probably this 808 Jones 808. I don't remember where I got it from. More than likely, I use a lot of sounds. It could be a cardiac 808. It could be a Ill Mind or S1 808 sound, but this is probably my favorite. You probably will hear it in 90% of my songs. If there is an 808, it's probably this one. The only thing I change usually is the effects. So I do have effects on here. I throw saturator, which is at the top here. That's the native Beatmaker 3 saturator. Just put that at 55%, add a little bit gain to it, about 1.2 dB. I use the FAC transient again here, just to initialize preset. Low fly dirt, again, to add some warmth, not too much there. Haze 2, this sort of adds a little width to the sound. So I'm widening the lower end here with this Haze 2 plugin. And then DAW cassette, so it's sort of like some more saturation, some subtle tape saturation. You see these presets here I'm using. Again, this is adapted from Henny the Business, who posted on YouTube his 808 preset sort of plugins maybe last year. And I took that and ran with it and added my own effects. And then for the dynamics here, this is the native Beatmaker 3 dynamic section. I use a sidechain compressor, so I have a preset that I set up down here at the bottom, and then I choose the kick drum, which is my first track on the drums track, to sort of sidechain. So what happens is when the kick drum hits, it'll lower the volume on the 808 so that you can hear the kick punch through. That is the 808. Let's see if I can play a little bit of that for you. So you'll hear that in the mix in a little bit. Moving right along, this is Pure Synth, one of my favorite synth tracks by synth apps by gospel musicians. They have a bunch of sounds that really work well in the gospel setting, but they really work well for hip hop, work well for R&B. So for this one, I use the pads and synth strings and the atmosphere shifter. I think I have this Quattro mod plugin to sort of add some width. I think I'm using one of these chorus presets on there. These are the settings you see here. And then just some EQ to sort of roll off the low end, because I will let the drums and the 808 sort of handle that. Here is what this is doing. I think some chords in the middle of the song. So it really adds sort of like, it almost does add like that gospel feel to it, but it's a dope app. I use that probably on most of my tracks now, where I want to find just some keys or strings or anything. I usually go there first. Next up is this Flute. No plugins added here. It's just the Flute app. I think I increased the reverb here on the right, the size of reverb. That's just me playing on the iPad. I think to record this, I actually plugged in a MIDI keyboard to add like the flute melody here. So you'll hear that throughout the piece. I added some audio sort of ear candy with this Lagrange plugin. It's a plugin by Iceworks. It's an app. This particular sound is sort of like a bell synth mix. I really liked it, so I just threw that in there. I did not add any effects. This is just the native preset for the sound. I don't really get into tweaking too much, but you have so much flexibility with this plugin. There are plenty of videos on YouTube that show you how you can mess with the oscillators, the routing, the envelope, the mixer, the filter settings, the delay. Usually I find a preset that I like. I might add some other effects or maybe take down some of the effects if it's built in. In this case, I think I left it there. Here's what that's doing. So the timing may also sound a little bit off, but it sort of works in the mix. And also that melody that it's playing sort of aligns with the sample here. So you'll sort of hear that under the sample there. And last but not least, I have one of my favorite plugins by Sugar Bytes called Factory. And for this one, I'm using this Twin Boards preset. And what I'm doing is at the end of the piece, I'm holding down, I believe it's a F minor 7 chord. So I'm actually starting on G, and then holding C. I think every 1 or 2 bars I add fourth. So I'm doing G, let's see if I can bring more keys. G, C, F, B flat. And you'll hear that sort of towards the end. I don't know if I did it that high, but here's that coming in. So you hear me adding different notes. All right, so that is the gist. For those interested, here is a quick play of everything put together. So here we go.
The fingers on the beat.
And that's it. Thanks for checking this out. This is Marcus the Fingaz Manderson, and we'll catch you next time.